Hello everyone, welcome back to today's video. Be sure to like, share, and check out the author Cap universe as they have some good work. His link will be in the description down below. And with that, let's begin. Chapter 25, Endeavor's Downfall. Uraraka, are you alright? Deku asked as he and Uraraka sat in the apartment. What? She asked. You spaced out again, Deku replied. Is something bothering you? He asked. No, just a lot of schoolwork. It's just a couple months until graduation after all, Uraraka replied. Kaken figured out about our connection, didn't he? Deku stated. It's that obvious. Uraraka asked. Sometimes you're like an open book. This was more of a video played on loudspeakers, Deku replied. Plus, I know Kaken, he is anything but dumb. I revealed too much in the belief I had him, Deku said. He was right there, his head just beneath my feet, he said as his frustration rose. I was this close to kill him. But then that damned bunny appeared, Deku said through gritted teeth. Deku, Uraraka said in a scolding tone. Oh, sorry. I got a bit caught up, Deku replied as he quickly calmed down. You do know that it is inevitable that someone in your class gets hurt or worse, right? You're all a bunch of overachievers, joining internships under high-ranking heroes. Kaken under Endeavor, Takoyami under Hawks, you under Lemillion, and so on, Deku asked. Maybe that is right. Or perhaps you could do something else than demolishing skyscrapers, Uraraka suggested. You know I can't stop until I've made Japan a better place, Deku said. By killing innocents, Uraraka asked. Uraraka, I know that what I'm doing is wrong by itself. I've done horrible things and killed so many civilians. But I do that to achieve a better world. Maybe my actions will cost many lives. But how many lives will it save? The countless people's lives which are cut short due to society not allowing them any chance to do their quirk or lack thereof, Deku explained. Call me naive, but I still think there is good in society. There are other ways than violence, Uraraka countered. You're not wrong. There is at least one good person in this hero-infested society, Izuku said with small smile. Who? Uraraka asked. You, Izuku replied with a bright smile, making Uraraka slightly flustered. Don't take it too seriously. You're just the only hero who understands why I do the things I do, Izuku said with a small laughter as he stood up and opened a portal. All right, meet you again on Friday, or the dreams. Whichever comes first, I guess, Uraraka said. Of course. Bye, Uraraka, Izuku replied and walked into the portal. Bye, Izuku, Uraraka replied with a small smile as the portal closed. She then grabbed her stuff and walked out of the apartment and locked the door. Meanwhile, outside the apartment, a very concerned Present Mid had observed Deku's and Uraraka's conversation, and was now keeping an eye on Uraraka. This is much worse that you and Mirage Shota, he whispered to himself. We can't let this continue, he mumbled, and began heading towards Yue, making sure Uraraka didn't see him. Once Present Mike reached Yue, he quickly found Aizawa going through paperwork in his office. Shota, I'm worried about Uraraka. I know you can't tell me why or how her and Deku got in touch, but they are much closer than you and Mirage were, Present Mike said with worry. How much closer? Aizawa asked. I don't know, to be honest. They are definitely not a couple, but at the same they are closer than most friends. They also seem to have an understanding for the other's actions. I'm not sure. A lot of it flew right over me, Present Mike. I see. That means I got the wrong impression from Uraraka, Aizawa said. Shota, shouldn't we stop this? I mean, with how close they are, this could backfire immensely. Much worse than what Mirage did, Present Mike asked. Maybe. But this is the only big clue currently in Deku's investigation. For over 2 years he has remained completely hidden from the police. Nobody knows how many is in his revolution, and nobody knows how deep his infiltration goes. If we lose this source, we might never catch him. Unless he does something stupid, which I highly doubt, Aizawa explained. I know that, Shota, but we both know how it turns out when you get too close to Villain. I just don't want her to lose someone like we lost Shirakumo, Present Mike said with a hint of remorse in his voice. After a long silence, Aizawa finally spoke. Azashi, this will not turn out like that. Like you said yourself, Uraraka is very capable and can take of herself. We just need enough time to locate Deku. And unlike what I did back then, she isn't undercover. We can easily keep her away once we locate Deku's base of operations, Aizawa explained. I've learned my mistakes. I won't let what happened to Shirakumo happen to anyone else. And especially not because of me, he added. I hope you're right about this, Aizawa, Present Mike said. Just as Present Mike opened the door, he saw Midnight running through the hall, alarmingly fast. Nedzu just put the school in lockdown. We need to get the students to their dorms, she yelled. What happened? Present Mike asked as both he and Aizawa quickly started running through the hallways as well. Deku's forces just launched a massive attack near Fukuoka, Midnight replied. Is Deku there? Aizawa asked. He hasn't been seen yet. However, both Endeavor and Hawks are present, Midnight replied. Endeavor stood in between the ruins of what used to be city blocks. He stood above the foe he had just spent a long time fighting. The Namu had come out of nowhere while Hawks was having a conversation with him. Endeavor immediately that there was something different about this Namu. He had encountered Deku's creations many times before, but this was different. This Namu spoke, taunted him, and acted with an intelligence which he hadn't seen before. The entire look of this Namu was also different. It was shrouded in a dark mist which seemed to appear out of cracks which would form along the Namu's skin. The only two clear features were the white glowing eyes and the leather beak sewn to the creature's face. Not to mention, it was a lot stronger. As Endeavor looked down on the unusual Namu, he could suddenly hear energetic clapping coming from the dust clouds around him. "I'm almost impressed," Endeavor, an all too familiar voice said, as the clapping started to slow down. "I expected it to lose, but not by this much," Deku said as he stepped into view. Endeavor readied himself for another fight, when the Namu suddenly started twitching. "Careful now. I would conserve my strength if I were you. Trust me, you'll need it," Deku threatened. The Namu suddenly sprung up and ran towards Deku. "I did ... as commanded, Master," the Namu said in a deep, unnatural voice, filled with pain. "Yes, you did. And you've served me well," Deku replied as he placed his palm against the Namu's head. "You've served you sentence overhauled," Deku said with a smirk, and the Namu almost seemed relieved. "You're free," Deku said in a cold voice just before the creature seemingly exploded, its blood being splattered everywhere. "Is that what you wanted? To test your sick abominations on me?" Endeavor asked. "A test on someone of your skill level? Of course not. As I said, he has served his sentence. And it was getting outdated anyways," Deku replied dismissively. "So you just wanted to rough me up so that you could kill me yourself?" Endeavor asked as he readied a fireball in his hand. "Oh, you thought I was the one who killed you?" Deku said with a mocking laughter. "No, of course not. I'm just the distraction," he said as his voice got more sinister. "They are the ones who will kill you," he said and glanced to his right. Endeavor followed Deku's gaze and saw white fire hurtling towards him. He barely managed to raise a wall of fire, which protected him from the intense blast. Once the flames dissipated, Todoroki came walking out of the smoke. "Hi, Dad," he said in a cold, nonchalant voice. "Shoto," Endeavor said as guilt spread across his face. "I know that what I did to you and the others is unforgivable. I'm not asking for forgiveness. But you don't have to do this. Trust me, killing me won't help you," Endeavor pleaded. Todoroki's expression remained unchanged. "Good, because you won't get my forgiveness. But if you want to live, you should come with a better excuse. And that goes for the both of us," Todoroki said as Dabai walked up next to Todoroki. "I don't know what I did to you, but I've changed," Endeavor said. "You really cared so little for me." Dabai chuckled. "I know my appearance might have changed over the years, but I still got your stupid eyes. And the scars never really left either," he said and slowly traced a finger alongside the scarred skin under his light blue eye. Endeavor looked closer at Dabai and suddenly his face turned into one of shock and sorrow. "Talia, I should have been better. I should have been the father you deserved," Endeavor said. "Huh, now you realize your mistakes," Dabai laughed sarcastically. "Just before your last breath," he said with a sinister smile just before he and Todoroki both launched a powerful tornado of blue and white fire against their father. Endeavor boosted himself away from the tornado of fire, barely dodging it. "I'm sorry, but I still have to protect the innocent," Endeavor said and charged towards Todoroki. "Weren't we innocent?" Dabai asked and sent a wave of fire towards Endeavor. The hero quickly changed focus and opened up a path to Dabai with his own fire. Todoroki tried to blast fire at Endeavor at close range, but Endeavor grabbed Todoroki's arm and redirected the attack towards Dabai, who was blasted back. Meanwhile, Deku looked at the battle with slight dismay at Endeavor's initial success. Despite going up against two fire quirks superior to his own, he still manages to go on the offensive, Deku muttered to himself as he analyzed the fight. But Overhaul did push him to his limit. It won't be long until he has reached the absolute limit of his quirk. He'll either collapse from overheating or be burned by Dabai and Todoroki, Deku noted as puffs of smoke could be seen coming from Endeavor's mouth with every breath. "The only problem that could come now is," Deku said as he heard someone cutting through the air behind him. "Maruko," he smirked as he turned around to see the heroine aiming straight for him. But just as her kick was about to land, a large and dark creature came out of nowhere and blocked it. "Come on and fight me yourself, coward," Maruko called out as she carefully observed the new foe. "I'm not stupid. I've learned my lesson from our last encounter. I would also recommend focusing on rescuing civilians. The Namu won't kill you, but it won't let you past either," Deku said with confident smirk. "Like hell I'll pass down a challenge," Maruko exclaimed and jumped towards the Namu. She tried to kick it in its side, but Namu grabbed her leg and threw her towards a nearby building. The Namu then charged after Maruko, leaving Deku to continue to witness the fight. Both Todoroki and Dabai had been damaged from the fight with their father. Todoroki's clothes had multiple pieces burned away, and small amounts of steam was coming from his left side. Dabai was much in the same condition in addition to having lost several of the staples that held down his scarred skin. However, Endeavor was by far in the worst state. He could no longer maintain the iconic fire he used to produce around him. His costume was severely damaged, showing burnt skin beneath, and his left arm was hanging limp to his side, covered in third-degree burns. "Come on, old man. Just die," Todoroki huffed and sent a wave of white fire against Endeavor, noticeably weaker than the earlier attacks. The hero tried to defend himself with an attack of his own, but only a weak stream of fire came out which was easily overpowered. The intense heat and power pushed Endeavor into the ground with another set of burns under his already tattered costume. Finally, Dabai smirked as he and Todoroki walked up to their father. Endeavor slowly got up, but was too weak to attempt any form of attack. "Kill me if you want, I deserve it. But you don't have to follow Deku and kill innocent people," Endeavor pleaded. "Innocent? How many heroes knew what you did to us and did nothing?" Todoroki asked. "I'm talking about the people trying to have a normal day who have done nothing wrong," Endeavor exclaimed. "You mean the masses who follow heroes blindly? The ones who vote for the same corrupt politicians every election? Those who can see all the problems of the system yet decide to ignore it, because it is easier to look the other way?" Dabai retorted. "Besides, isn't it better to go through a short turbulent transition to achieve a better world rather than continue in a world where the weak silently suffer?" Todoroki argued. "Deku is a madman," Endeavor said through gritted teeth and cast a glance at the green-haired boy who was silently observing him. "What will happen if you win? Will you decide it is best to rule with an iron fist, suppress anyone who critiques the way you think is right, turn Japan back into a dictatorship?" Endeavor asked. "If that is what it takes," Dabai replied coldly. Then Dabai and Todoroki raised their left arm, ready to kill their father. Endeavor stood unmoving as he slowly raised his right fist towards the sky. "Goodbye, old man," Todoroki said as he and Dabai sent a stream of blue and white fire towards Endeavor. The intense fire quickly engulfed the hero, but the only sound that could be heard was the roaring flames. Eventually the flames ceased, revealing charred ground and pile of dust where the number one hero had stood. "Great job. One down, one to go," Deku said with a glee as he walked towards Dabai and Todoroki. "We should probably get going," Dabai said. "Yeah, wouldn't want any heroes to," Deku said, but was interrupted as he heard something being smashed against the ground. He turned around and with a shocked face saw that Maruko had somehow ripped the Namu's head off and smashed it against the ground. And now, she was heading straight for them with a killing intent. "Todoroki," Deku exclaimed. "Don't worry," Todoroki replied as a massive wall of ice sprung up between them and Maruko, giving them just enough time to escape through a portal. Maruko landed at the other side of the ice wall with no small amount of frustration at seeing that Deku and his accomplices had escaped. Shortly after, Hawks landed beside her with the small amount of feather he had left. "Where the hell were you?" Maruko asked. "I started rescuing civilians once he had beaten the Namu. I didn't know Deku came," Hawks explained. "Not like I can do much fighting with so few feathers anyways," he added. "Well, you'll be number one now. You better start catching up some slack," Maruko said as she looked at the pile of dust on the ground with a solemn look. "Yeah, guess I'll have a lot of work ahead of me," Hawks replied nonchalantly. Chapter 26, Discoveries. Phoenix Journal, No. 4, Entry 78. "Ochako didn't take us killing Endeavor that well. I can still feel the slap she gave me, even if it was in the dreams. I tried to argue with her, talking about all that he has done, but she is still her eternal forgiving self. She is kind, almost too kind. She almost made me feel bad for watching that monster burn. I'm just afraid what will happen when I kill Lemillion. I don't want to lose the relationship we currently have." Entry 81. "I've discovered something that worries me. I was examining Shigaraki's and Kurogiri's DNA when I discovered some disturbing information. First disturbing realization is what was taken from Shigaraki. Stem cells. That by itself isn't that dangerous, but stem cells could be used to speed up a cloning process, or even enhance it. I didn't use that option. It was too risky and I'd rather take it slowly and safely. But someone else wanted stem cells from Shigaraki specifically and is probably using it in a process similar to my cloning. As for Kurogiri, he is a Namu. Not one of mine, nor how I would make one, but his DNA shares remarkable similarities in its structure, meaning someone has been experimenting with intelligent Nomus long before I even knew about the League of Villains. Couple this with Shigaraki's stolen stem cells and it can only mean one thing. All for One still has allies and they are working on cloning or making something very, very dangerous. We'll have to start investigating this once Lemillion is dead. So Hawks, why exactly did you want to talk with me? And why at night?" Lemillion asked as he and Hawks walked through near empty streets in the middle of the night. "It's just a precaution after what happened to Endeavor. I want as few people as possible to know about this," Hawks replied. "Hey, you couldn't know that Deku knew Endeavor was with you." "I don't know how he knew, but I'm sure he won't manage to pull of that again," Lemillion said. "I know, just want to be certain. As for why I wanted to see you, I don't want to be number one," Hawks said. "Why not?" Lemillion asked, slightly surprised. "It's so much work. I'm not the person you would want to lead all heroes. I would much rather be in the top 20s or 30s," Hawks replied. "I can understand that, but why do you want to talk to me about it?" Lemillion asked. "We both know that you already was your path to become number one before Endeavor died. I was kinda hoping you would take second place during the last hero rankings, but I remained in second place and now I'm number one. That's why I want your help," Hawks explained. "I'll always help out a fellow hero," Lemillion said. "Good. You see, there has been." Hawks said before he stopped next to an alleyway with his back turned against Lemillion. Did you hear some? Lemillion asked, but was cut off when he felt something being shot into his neck. He quickly grabbed his neck and dragged out a dart. He tried to activate his quirk, but nothing happened. What the? Lemillion said, confused as Hawks turned to face him. I'm sorry, Hawks said, and injected Lemillion with something before he could react. You killed India, Lemillion hissed, but lost balance as his vision turned dark and he fell unconscious. When Lemillion woke up again, he found himself inside a cell with not much more than a bed, toilet, sink, and the chair he was tied to. He tried to remember what had happened, but was interrupted when Deku came into the cell. Lemillion tried to attack Deku, but his quirk wouldn't activate, so instead he ended up tipping his chair forwards and planted his face into the ground. What did you do to my quirk? Lemillion hissed. You remember our good old friend Overhaul? Deku asked. You've used her to make quirk-destroying drugs. Lemillion yelled and tried to get free. I would never hurt my own daughter, Deku said, and pulled the chair back so that Lemillion sat normally. No, I'm just using the few bullets that are left from Overhaul's work. Sadly, they never became permanent, and we only have a very limited supply of them, Deku explained as he stood behind Lemillion. So instead we have to ration them, use them until the effect almost runs out, then give you another shot, which would give you a few days left to live before we have to kill you, Deku said with a grin. Why is Hawks with you? Lemillion asked. He came to me, talked about joining the revolution, supporting the cause. Didn't believe him at first, but he has proven himself loyal. First luring out Endeavor, then bringing you right where I needed you, Deku explained. You won't win this, even if you kill me. There are others who will stop you, Lemillion threatened. There will be others who will try to stop me, but I will not stop. You know why? Because I fight for a just world, Deku replied. Anyways, I have experiments to run. Meanwhile, you'll get to talk with the new #1 hero, Deku said and walked out of the room just as Hawks came in. Have fun, Deku smirked and walked to his lab to run his experiments. The next morning, Todoroki walked into the lab to check on Deku. He hadn't gone to his room last night, which usually meant that he had pulled an all-nighter. Deku, you know this isn't healthy, Todoroki said as he found the boy looking over a screen with an intense look. Deku didn't notice Todoroki's remark and instead looked across the screen while muttering under his breath. Deku, Todoroki said slightly louder. Deku was immediately snapped out of his thoughts and quickly faced Todoroki, revealing the sleep bags under his eyes. Oh, Todoroki, you're going to sleep? Deku asked. It is 10 o'clock in the morning, Todoroki replied. Oh, guess I got carried away a bit, Deku chuckled. You got caught up in your research again? Todoroki asked. Well, yeah, Deku replied. But I think I finally have some explanation for what happened to me and Deku, he said. When you collapsed to the ground, Todoroki wondered. That is a part of it. Yes, Deku replied. You remember the big green flash, right? He asked. Yes, almost forgot I was in a fight because of it, Todoroki answered. Well, that was my quirk. My natural quirk, Deku said. Your quirk? I thought you were born quirkless, Todoroki said, slightly confused. So thought I up until I suddenly could make and control what might look like green fire, but is really plasma. The problem came afterwards when that same quirk wrought havoc on my own body, Deku said. So of course I ran tests on myself afterwards, and I just got more and more questions. You see, all the quirkless people I've experimented on has fallen into one of two possibilities. Either there isn't any resemblance of a quirk, or the quirk gene is present, but the quirkless trait is the active one. I thought I fell into the former, but now I know I fall into neither. My quirk is coded into my DNA completely differently than any case I've seen. That is how I still have an extra toe joint from my quirkless gene, Deku explained. How does that happen? Todoroki wondered, even more confused than before. Have you ever heard of the quirk singularity theory? Deku asked. No, can't say I have, Todoroki replied. Thought so much. The quirk singularity theory is based on the current trend where each generation develops more powerful and complex quirk. At some point, quirk could become too powerful and complex for our body to handle. I believe my quirk reached that point. It is so powerful and requires so much of the body that my body simply shut it off, forced it away to protect itself, Deku explained. If that's the case, wouldn't that mean that more people like you will get born as time goes by? Todoroki wondered. You would be right in that assessment, Deku replied and pulled up some statistics on the screen for Todoroki to see. Everyone knows that 80% of the world's population has quirks, but that is just the global average. It gets slightly higher near to where quirks first appeared, in China, and it gets slightly lower the further away you get, like Western Europe, although it doesn't vary that much due to global immigration and emigration. You'll also find a large difference in the percentage between generations. Among the older population, quirks remained a minority for a long time, and in the younger generations more and more people have quirks. The year we were born, 92% of all children later developed quirks. 3 years later it had become 93%. The weird thing is that it has stayed at 93% ever since, and actually dropped by a decimal point for those who are now developing quirks, Deku explained. So more people are becoming quirkless? Todoroki asked, slightly shocked. Yes, the evolution of humanity seems to be going in reverse now. Although, that isn't the most interesting statistic. That would go to the percentage of quirkless people with parents who have quirks, which I would fall under. Deku reply. Ever since quirks started to get widely tested for, the amount of quirkless people who have parents with quirks has remained at roughly 1%. That is also true for the year we were born. It is seen as a rare genetical fluke. However, in the last 8 years that number has risen, and quite dramatically as well. 2% of quirkless children born 8 years ago had parents with quirks. If you look at the most recent data for those born 4 years ago and are now developing quirks, that number has risen to 12%, Deku explained. Sadly, I can't confirm if this is just a cosmic coincidence or the result of quirk singularity. As much as I wish I could conduct tests on this trend, I can't. Experimenting on children is right out, and those who are old enough are a 1 in a million. All I have is myself, he added with a sigh. I see. So we can only really speculate about this, Todoroki said. Yeah, pretty much, Deku said and stood up. Anyways, we have a prisoner to look after. Did Hawks say anything suspicious yesterday? He asked. No, he largely just listened to Lemillion shouting at him about betrayal and so on. The motion sensors didn't pick up anything unexpected either, Todoroki replied. Good, Deku said and began walking towards Lemillion's cell. Later that night, Deku found himself in the familiar dream landscape of One for All. He looked to his side and saw a very pissed of Uraraka. Before Deku could react, he was slapped across the face so hard that he fell to the ground. What was that for? Deku exclaimed. What have you done to Lemillion? Uraraka shouted. What do you think? He is a hero, Deku answered and got up. Lemillion is different. He doesn't do it for selfish reasons. He only wants to save people. Uraraka protested. Don't act stupid, it doesn't suit you. You knew that this would happen. I don't care how noble a hero is. They still perpetuate the same corrupt system, Deku retorted. I know you see things that way, but why Lemillion? Isn't he what you wanted All Might to be? Uraraka asked as she calmed down slightly. He only wants to save 1 million people, make them smile. He's even the only top 10 hero who hires quirkless people in his agency, she added as tears formed in her eyes. Uraraka, believe me when I tell you that this isn't personal. Yes, he is one of the better heroes out there, I'll admit that. But I can't let that get in the way of my goals, you know that. Besides, there is only really one question which I care about to judge heroes, Deku explained. And what is that? Uraraka wondered. Do you think that a quirkless person can become a hero? Izuku asked. Of course they can, Uraraka said. I know you think that, but does Lemillion feel the same? Izuku asked. I don't know, I've never asked him, Uraraka replied. I see. Izuku sighed and gave a thoughtful look. Look, Achako, I'm sorry that this hurt you like this, he said, trying to comfort her. Don't Achako me, Izuku. It doesn't change what you will do, Uraraka said. I know, Izuku replied in a solemn tone. Chapter 27, The Collapse. Deku sat in his room deep in thought while staring at the wall. He had trouble focusing on pretty much anything that day. He couldn't even bring himself to enter Lemillion's cell. He could only think of those sad and angry tears on Uraraka's face he had seen the night prior. His thoughts was interrupted, however, when Eri came into the room. Dad, are you all right? Eri asked. Don't worry about me, Eri. Just me and my foolish thoughts, Izuku replied with a smile. Shouldn't you be asleep now? He added. I tried to, but, Eri said, barely mumbling at the end. Bad memories? Izuku asked with a comforting look. Eri gave a small nod in return. Don't worry, I'll help you sleep, Izuku said and guided Eri back into her room. Once Eri was tucked in her bed, Izuku sat down next to her bed and slowly stroked her white hair. Can you sing me a song? Eri asked, surprising Izuku slightly. You really think I can sing? Besides, I don't know many songs anyways, Izuku replied with a small laughter. Can't you just do it, just tonight? Eri begged. Well, I guess there is this one I know, Izuku said and took a deep breath, before he began to sing with the best voice he could muster. The wind is riding high with clouds, over sea and land and town. The storm is raging pale and bleak. Grief and death did not come here. Some will come and some will go. Some will die in blooming spring. Stars are shining brightly. Was that good enough? Izuku asked. It was. Thank you, Dad, Eri replied as she closed her eyes and snuggled up to Izuku's arm. You won't leave me, right, Dad? Eri asked. No, of course not. Why would you even ask that? Izuku wondered. Because in my nightmares I always get left alone. They take you away and you don't come back, Eri said with a small tremble in her voice. Those are just nightmares, Eri. You're my daughter and I will always love you and never leave you. And if someone tries to take me away from you, I'll make them regret to ever try to hurt you, Izuku said confidently. But now you should go to sleep, he said and gently placed a kiss on Eri's forehead. I love you, Eri, he said with a smile. I love you 9,000, Eri said with an even bigger smile. 9,000, that's impressive. I'll have to up my game, Izuku joked before walking back into his room, carefully closing the door behind him. Maybe I should go to sleep as well, Izuku said to himself. The following day, Deku visited Lemillion's cell with just a few more minutes before the drug ran out. Lemillion, I'm going to put out this offer one final time. Your colleague Hawks has already seen the truth of this world. I'll let you live and let you go back to your agency if you just join me, Deku said. And here I thought you were smart, Lemillion retorted. All right, if that is how you want to do it, Deku said nonchalantly. 10, 9, 8, 7, Deku said as he positioned himself behind Lemillion. 6, 5, 4. It continued as green lighting spread across his body. He began, but was cut off when the cell door slammed open and feathers shot out from the hallway and pushed Deku back. Hurry up, Lemillion, Hawks shouted as a few feathers cut the ropes that bound Lemillion to his chair. The hero quickly got up and began running with Hawks through the hallway. Hawks, Deku yelled in anger as fire erupted from his feet. Pieces of clothing were ripped off as he propelled himself away from the feathers and into pursuit of the two heroes. Deku quickly pulled out a phone and connected it to the facility's speaker system. Hawks is helping Lemillion escape. Stop them, he ordered before putting away the phone. Just as Deku could see Lemillion and Hawks running, the latter stopped and faced Deku. Just get out of here, Hawks ordered. I'll handle Deku, he added, more to himself. You won't get away with this, Hawks, Deku threatened as he switched over to One for All and began running towards Hawks at immense speed. Hawks sent out a barrage of feathers towards Deku. Deku tried to sidestep the barrage, but he still got hit, covering his right side in cuts. He quickly placed his hand towards the wall, making it reassemble into spikes aimed at Hawks. The hero flew out of the way and slammed Deku into the roof with feathers as he passed by. I'm pretty sure you're the one who won't get away, Hawks said as Deku slowly got back up. I actually believed you for a moment. Trusted you. Thought you supported the revolution, Deku said as his anger grew. And this is how you repay me, he yelled. If it is any comfort, then know that you have the right motives, Hawks said calmly. Deku was about to attack Hawks again, but stopped when the entire facility shook and an alarm started blaring. You've led the heroes here, Deku said as his eyes opened up in realization. Yes, you won't escape this time, Hawks said and sent out a new barrage of feathers. Deku quickly powered up One for All and punched a hole in the floor, dropping himself into the hallway below. He then ran away before Hawks had time to pursue him. Deku stumbled over to control panel hidden in a wall and began going through camera footage. Shit, he muttered to himself as he saw heroes storming a gaping hole on the far side of the facility. Deku turned on the speaker system and began giving out orders. Begin a Type 1 evacuation. The facility is lost, he ordered. Deku then pushed a few more buttons, releasing all the Nomus on site. That should give some time, Deku mumbled as he opened a portal. On the other side of the portal, Deku found himself in Redestro's cell. You're here to kill me, aren't you? The heroes are coming and you don't want any loose ends, Redestro stated. Depends. Will you pledge yourself and your forces to my revolution? Deku asked. No, Redestro replied. Fine. Then I would recommend taking a deep breath and hold it. The neurotoxin takes a while to warm up, Deku replied solemnly as he left the room. I really didn't want this to happen, he said and closed the door. I know, Redestro said to himself as green gas could be seen flowing out of the vents in the wall. Once Deku had activated the gas in all cells, he left to find the others. They were, as expected, in the central room of the entire facility, the lab. Guderi is here, Deku said as he saw the girl being carried by Todoroki. Dad, what is happening? Eri asked worriedly. There is a lot of people who don't like me, Eri, and they are coming to take me and everyone here, Deku replied. Deku then opened a portal. This goes to the temporary safe house. From there we will have to spread ourselves across the country and go into hiding. At least until things have calmed down, Deku explained. You sure this will work out? Dabai asked. Yes, now hurry up, and Deku said, but was interrupted when Anamu came flying through the door into the lab. Get out, he yelled and charged up One for All. The others quickly complied and walked into the portal as heroes started entering the lab. Aren't you coming, Dad? Eri asked once she noticed that Deku wasn't following them. I have something to take care of first. Get to safety, Eri, Deku said and grabbed some of the machines around the lab with Blackwa. You said you wouldn't leave me, Eri said and began struggling in Todoroki's hold. Todoroki, get her out, Deku ordered as he threw a machine against a hero. Dad, no, Eri yelled as she began crying. She desperately tried to get out of Todoroki's grip, but couldn't and was eventually dragged into the dark mist of the portal. I'm sorry, Eri, but this has to be done, Deku said with a remorseful voice. He quickly jumped back as more heroes started trying to attack him. He pulled out a small controller from his pocket and pressed the button, setting off bombs hidden in the walls of the lab. Deku then quickly disappeared into a portal. Deku emerged into a dimly lit room with a big glass tube in the middle. He quickly ran over to the control panel and began working. I'm sorry, Mom, they found me. I'll have to prepare the tube for a transfer, and this time I don't have much time, Deku muttered. Don't worry, if the heroes catch me, the others will know what to do. The instructions are in the safe house, he added as progress bar appeared on the controls, slowly ticking up. As the bar slowly ticked up to 80%, Deku heard people approaching. I won't let them take you again, he said with determination as the sounds came closer. Just as the door opened, a spike shot up from the floor and pierced the chest of the first hero who entered. The next hero came running in with a shocked expression. Deku didn't waste a moment and was on top of the hero before she could react. The hero exploded as Deku pressed his hand against her head, not even flinching. I won't let you take her, Deku whispered as he made a wall in front of the door. 3 more heroes came, breaking through the wall. I won't let you take her, Deku repeated louder this time. Fire erupted from his feet, shooting him towards one of the heroes before driving his fist into the hero's face. The 2 other heroes ran towards the glass tube to see what it was. I won't let you take her, Deku yelled and grabbed both heroes with Black Whip, crashing them into each other. More heroes came, including Hawks and Edgeshot. You won't stop me, Deku panted, getting worn out from the fighting. I don't know what you're making, but you won't finish it, Edgeshot said and aimed straight for the glass tube. No, Deku yelled and raised a wall between Edgeshot and the glass tube, just to have himself pushed into the tube by Hawk's feathers, making the glass crack. You don't know what you're doing, Deku said, as he got up. You can't take her from me again, he said as green lightning spread across his body. Then a small beep came from the control panel. Deku wasted no time and opened up a portal behind the glass tube. He pushed the glass tube towards the portal with all his strength, ripping it from the pipes connected to it. This time, she'll live, Deku said and punched into the air in front of him with 100% of One for All, blowing back the 2 top 10 heroes. At the same time, his arm broke and the glass tube was pushed into the portal. Deku stumbled to his feet and began walking towards the portal. He was just about to touch it, when it suddenly dissipated. What? Was all Deku had time to say before a gray cloth wrapped itself around him and turned him around. Oh, so that is what it is, Deku said nonchalantly. Congratulations, heroes. I surrender, Deku said with a smirk as he stared at Eraserhead. Deku was quickly grabbed by 2 heroes and pushed into the ground as they cuffed him. All the while he had a grin on his face. Chapter 28, Stuck. Deku couldn't help but chuckle as he was escorted through the halls of his facility and out to the waiting armored truck. Even fully restrained, with no chance of escape, the heroes still didn't dare to take any chances. I have to say that I'm flattered that you would take so much trouble just to put little me in prison, Deku smirked. Shut it. You've already caused enough trouble, one of the police officers behind him replied. Why would I shut up? I don't have much else to do now, Deku asked. He tried to get a look at the police officer, but was unable to due to the restraints put on him. Nothing more to say. That's boring, Deku said. After many minutes, Deku was taken out of the facility and transported into an armored truck, still heavily restrained. After Deku, Eraserhead climbed into the truck and sat down watching over Deku as the doors closed and the truck began its drive. It was quite a big escort along with this truck out there. Did you want to ensure I wouldn't escape or did you expect to arrest more than one? Deku asked. Eraserhead remained silent, much to Deku's annoyance. I have to say, bringing you along just to catch me was the right play on your part. Your quirk is really the greatest counter to my own quirks. Such a shame I wasted most of that sample on experiments rather than myself, Deku monologue. Not gaining any reactions from Eraserhead. I know you're probably not allowed to talk with me, but could you answer one question? For how long have you known about me and Uraraka's meetings? Deku asked, finally gaining a reaction from Eraserhead. So she told you, he muttered. Told me. Do you have so little faith in your own students? Deku asked. No, it was simply a matter of investigating on my part, he said, answering himself. I've known Uraraka for a long time now, so I knew there was something bothering her. At first I thought it was just Kaken finding out about our dream connection, but she kept acting weirdly even after I brought it up. So I looked deeper, and I found Present Mike spying on our meetings, Deku explained, gaining a slightly shocked expression from Eraserhead. Don't be so surprised. Present Mike isn't known for being the most discreet hero, Deku said. Anyways, I knew that Present Mike wasn't the one who figured out about our meetings. So either All Might got the information out of her or you connected the dots one way or another. I know All Might would never accept his precious successor having regular meetings with a villain, which, by the process of elimination, leaves you, he explained. Now there is just one question left. Why? Why let your student have meetings with a villain? Deku asked, staring at Eraserhead's dark expression. I know what it is like, the hero replied. Come on, Eraserhead. You have to give me more than that, especially if you want crucial information, Deku said with a smile. It is an exchange of information, and I think I'm being very generous, he added. After a moment of silence, Eraserhead replied, I know what it is like to get close to a villain. I can understand why that happens, he said, before hesitating for a moment. Because I did so myself once, and someone got hurt, he concluded. I see. Very interesting, Deku said with a thoughtful expression. Well, I'm a man of my word. You'll get the information I promised, Deku said. I was planning on telling Uraraka about this at next opportunity, but I guess you would suffice. All for One's allies are still alive and active, he said. I had DNA samples of all members of the League of Villains, and 2 of them gives a worrying implication. Shigaraki is the first. He escaped from my grasp at first. When my Nomus brought him back, he was dead and his DNA slightly altered. Someone had taken stem cells and various DNA samples from him, killed him and then returned him to my Nomus. I don't know why, but I do know that whoever did it most likely knows quirks as well as I do and wants to make something, Deku explained, gaining Eraserhead's attention. The second discovery was that of Kurogiri and the fact that he is a Namo. Not a particularly strong one, but highly intelligent. I myself don't know how to make a Namo like that, meaning someone has been experimenting with Nomus long before I began, and may have more knowledge than I do. This someone is an ally of All for One, and most likely the same person who kidnapped Shigaraki before I could, Deku explain. Are you certain of this? Eraserhead asked. I am dead certain. You could analyze the DNA yourselves. I'm sure you got it from my lab. I guess you already have some knowledge of how a Nomus DNA looks. Multiple quirks and people's DNA merged onto a base body, Deku replied. In Kurogiri's case, that base would be the body of a Shurakumo if I remember the results correctly, he mentioned. Eraserhead's face suddenly became shocked once he heard Shurakumo's name, drawing Deku's attention. Oh, so you knew him? Deku asked with a twisted smile. Shut up, Eraserhead whispered. That close even? A classmate? Maybe a friend even? Deku taunted. Stop it, Eraserhead hissed. Is he the one who got hurt when you got too close to Villain? Deku with a grin. Shut up. Eraserhead yelled and suddenly punched Deku straight in the face. Isn't that great? You killed your friend and then he was turned into a villain. And now he is dead again. Deku laughed. You don't know what you're talking about, Eraserhead, suppressing his anger and holding back another fist. I'm sorry about your loss, Eraserhead. Kurogiri was one of the nicer members in the league. It is sad that he was so loyal to Shigaraki. He could have made a great asset, Deku said, turning more sincere. Is that the way you view your allies, as assets? Eraserhead asked, barely containing his anger. That is how I pick my allies. How valuable could they be for me in the future? What impact will they have? Those questions. But make no mistake, I keep them as friends. I'm not heartless despite what you heroes think, Deku replied. After that, both Deku and Eraserhead remained silent for the rest of the trip. When the escort arrived at its destination, Deku was taken out of the armored truck and inside the walls of Tartarus. He was first taken to what was the bare minimums of a courtroom. Despite being a villain, the law still required a trial. However, in Tartarus, that process had been streamlined to the maximum. Just after a few minutes, Deku was already in his cell. Once Deku was inside his cells, his restraints were lifted. He took a few steps and began looking around. It wasn't much. A chair and a table, a bed and a toilet and a sink behind a small wall. In each of the four corners of the roof was a camera. Beneath each camera was what appeared to be a small sensor and a machine gun. Deku smirked once he noticed that. This cell wasn't made for me, was it? He asked to the empty room. Don't worry, I won't keep it occupied for too long, he added with a small smirk. Later at the UA dorms, Class 1 gathered in the common area. They had been told from both Aizawa and All Might that there would be an important conference on the news that day. They got more suspicious after all of their internships had been cancelled for the day. After a long wait and the news only showing a conference room with an empty podium, something happened. The Prime Minister walked up to the podium and began his address to the press. 2 hours ago, a raid was successfully carried out in the main headquarters of the Phoenix Revolution, in which its leader Deku was hiding. This has been the result of a long undercover mission carried out by the hero Hawks, who managed to get the crucial information that allowed for this mission to happen. 78 heroes along with 200 police officers participated in the raid, with the goal of extracting the recently kidnapped hero Lemillion as well as arresting the leaders of the Phoenix Revolution, the Prime Minister calmly explained before taking a small moment to let the information sink in. The primary mission of safely extracting Lemillion was successful. He was rescued with minimal injuries and is expected to return as a hero later this week. The secondary mission of arresting the leaders of the Phoenix Revolution also saw success, while almost all of the top villains managed to escape due to the massive resistance put up by, as of yet, unknown number of Nomus. Deku, the 18-year-old leader of the Phoenix Revolution and Japan's most wanted villain, was captured. He was detained and quickly transported to Tartarus prison. On the basis of his crimes, he has been sentenced to life imprisonment, the Prime Minister stated. By that point, Class 1 was too busy discussing the news than listen to the rest of the Prime Minister's address, so they finally caught him, Zero said. It's almost hard to believe, he added. Yeah, was almost afraid that we would have to deal with him once we became heroes, Kaminari said, relieved. It isn't over, so you might still have to talk, Koyami said. But he is in Tartarus. No one ever gets out of there, Ashido protested. It isn't Deku I'm talking about. His followers are still around. The problems that made Deku still exist, Takoyami explained. You aren't supporting him, are you? Basui asked. No, Deku is a monster. All I'm saying is that I agree with his reasons, Takoyami replied. Well, at least they managed to get Lemillion out of there, Kirishima said. Yeah, it has been different without him at his agency, Uraraka said. Do any of you wonder why Deku didn't kill him though? Kaminari asked. I think we should just be glad that he is alive, Ashido replied. I am, but it just seems weird, you know. Lemillion was gone for a good few days. Why not kill him sooner? He killed Endeavor after all, Kaminari said. Bakugo then suddenly left the common area and walked over to his room. I should check on him, Kirishima said and followed after him. Becca bro, are you alright? Kirishima asked as he closed the door to Bakugo's room. Deku getting caught. I just need some time to think, Bakugo replied. I know Deku is a sensitive topic to you, Kirishima said. Of fucking course he is. I practically made him. Bakugo exclaimed. All the things I did to him, how I treated him. If it hadn't been for me, then he wouldn't have done all this, he said remorsefully. Don't beat yourself down like that, Kirishima protested. But I did treat Deku. Midoriya, I treated him so horribly, Bakugo said. Well, yeah, you did, Kirishima admitted, making Bakugo look down in shame. But you've changed. You admit to your past mistakes and try to learn from them. Besides, as Takoyami said, there are many things that made Deku the way he is. You were just one of them, Kirishima said in a comforting tone. Midoriya, Bakugo said. His name is Izuku Midoriya, the little boy who wanted to help save everyone and become a hero. The boy I treated like trash, he continued. Maybe, if what Round Face told me is true, then maybe I can. Bakugo mumbled. Uraraka, what does she have to do with this? Kirishima asked. I shouldn't have said that. Forget about it, Bakugo said, slightly taken off guard. Why? We've been together for a while now. You can tell me anything, Kirishima said. I know, but that isn't something that I can tell you. It isn't my secret to share, Bakugo replied. And don't go and ask Round Face about it, he added. Alright, I won't, Kirishima promised. Bakugo and Kirishima just sat silently together for a while after that. Then Bakugo stood up. I know what I should do, he said. And what is that? Kirishima asked. You wouldn't let me if I told you, Bakugo replied. But I need to ask for a favor, he added before leaving the room. And with that, I'll see you all in the next part. For those who are interested, we have a Discord down below. Be sure to aim for the stars and drink plenty of water. And take care until next, we see each other again.